Welcome, everyone, to episode 41 of the Dual Boot Diaries, the weekly podcast where two longtime Windows users learn to use desktop Linux daily. I'm one of your hosts, Adam Patrick Murray.
I'm your other host, Will Smith, and we are not Linux experts, but what we are going to do is each week we're going to share our experience of running desktop Linux, changing from Windows to Linux, and at the end of the whole show, well, we're going to fire Windows into the sun, or I guess Linux if you're Adam. I don't know, man. Foreshadowing.
We'll see. Who knows? Nobody knows. We're
Anything.
We're on the third to final episode, right?
Yeah.
Is that the best way to say it? Like
this one and then two more. Anything could happen.
Yeah. No rules. We're at the end.
Yeah, maybe Microsoft is going to be like, hey, guys, we're giving up on Windows. We're calling the next version of Windows, it's going to be called Doors, because you go through them and then you never come back.
Oh, that's
Doors.
actually really good.
Microsoft Doors.
No, WillOS is official.
Yeah, our official. Yeah,
No, that'll be like, because where do you land after you go through the door into the entryway?
You're in
so
the back
you're going to
rooms
invite
then,
people in. WillOS.
Yeah. Microsoft back rooms. Once you go in, you can't get out. We got you.
Even better. Dang,
Yeah.
that's good. All right, we need to
write this down.
We need to go
Email
trade
to
this,
yourself.
Mark. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we're wrapping it up today. We want to go over some of the final questions. I did a final call over on our Discord. Got a lot of good questions. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but we got some really good ones we're going to get to. And starting with I would say the question that we've probably gotten the most on Dual Boot Diaries is, hey, why don't you show your actual version of Linux with us?
Yeah.
So
because we talked about a lot about how you can customize everything, make it do exactly what you want, and then we haven't actually shown that at all. So let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. So we have some technical stuff. You're actually on your desktop, so you can just share your screen.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first? Because yours might be the least complicated one, and also honestly, it's the most interesting one. I want to see. Well, I already know your Niri silliness, but others don't.
So I'm going to share my screen. This is my desktop. Now, because I'm doing this in Chrome, I have to move this thing up out of the way. But so, I mean, here this is just like normal Windows. But the thing about these is they're tiled, right? So when I say tiled, I say you can shrink them and make them bigger. And I'm doing all this with keyboard shortcuts.
Oh, that was a keyboard shortcut. I thought you were doing that with your mouse.
Yeah, no, I don't use my mouse for anything hardly. So I can move.
Can you grab from your mouse like the edge?
Probably.
And adjust,
I think you just. Well, I don't know. Maybe not. I've never done this before, actually.
Oh, okay.
Can I grab the edge? Yeah, I can grab the edge and swizzle it, but then it's going to be weird sizes, and I don't think I want that. So let's make it small, make it big. I can make it full screen. Oh, that's amazing. That's the good stuff
fun.
Right there.
Yeah.
There we go. There's my start screen on glances. Let's make this small again. That's a mistake. Here's my terminal. Important part of the thing. I use Alacrity. I have all the window Chrome turned off on as many of the windows as I can so that I don't see any bars or anything, because I'm using a tiled window manager. I don't need that business.
Yeah, and so you're tiling from left to right, or that's what people are seeing now, but then you have workspaces that are stacked on top.
Yeah, I can also go up and
bottom.
down. This is my game workspace. I don't think I think I launched Steam actually on my top monitor. But if I launched a game, it would be on this space. This is wallpaper from Wallpaper Haven, I think, or Wallhaven. And you can do as many. I mean, I think you do as many workspaces as you have marked +1. So like you'll see that this one is named game on the little bar at the top of my screen. This one's main. And then the one below that is 3. So you can specify them by name. You can target Windows to launch on specific workspaces. So like I can say, always open Firefox on workspace main, and then I can move it up. So I'm going to move I'm on Notion right now. I'm going to move it up by pressing Control and the Windows key and up, but I can move it back and I can move them left and right, stuff like that. I can center stuff.
Can you show us that thing the shortcuts key that I was giving you crap for? All your
the keyboard shortcuts? Yeah, so this is all the keyboard shortcuts.
Wait, hold on real quick. Is there not a keyboard shortcut to show you the keyboard shortcuts?
There
I saw
is,
you just hit something on...
I don't think I use it for anything.
You hit something on the top bar to reveal your keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah, and so this updates. This is generated out of the Niri config file. So everything in Niri. Let me actually show you that. So nano.config/niri/config.kdl. So this is the config file. It's just a great big flat text file. It has per machine includes. So like I have different monitor setups and different workspace setups, whether I'm on a laptop or on a desktop, because the desktop has multiple monitors, they're different resolutions, stuff like that. I have the keybinds, and these are all configured based, like those headers on the keyboard shortcuts are configured based on these comments in here. So like this hashtag means that there's a section in the keyboard file called media controls, which is like somewhere
top
in here.
middle.
Yeah, there you go, top middle. I don't know how they organize. I can't remember how they sort. There was a trick to that, but and then there's things like these are the controls that configure focus, window focus, and movement, and all that. And the basic rule is that focus is just by holding the super key and moving my arrows up or down, left or right. Changing the position of a window either up and down or left and right is by holding down Control, and then shifting between workspaces to move my perspective is Alt. But to move a window between workspaces to hold down Control at the same time. So you can, like, once you get the knack of it, you can go really, really fast, and it's very convenient.
It is pretty cool, and like I know you've mentioned this before, but you find yourself doing as much as you can with the keyboard versus moving to the mouse.
Yeah, so I try not to, like, I have RSI problems, especially on my mouse hand. So the less I use the mouse, the better I am, basically. The Niri config file also controls stuff like environment variables. There's programs that launch on start. This whole section is window rules. There's more of those in an external file as well. And they control things like what happens with pop-up windows. Like this one right here is for the pip window that Firefox pops up when you pop out a window from a Firefox window, a video from a Firefox window. There's like Audacity. I always open on chat because it's always like a secondary thing. I hardly ever actually am working directly in Audacity. Stuff like that. So, that's the gist.
What was in this Niri config file when you first started? Like how much have you actually changed that whole file?
So the stuff that was in at the start was kind of some input controls that made like multi-finger scroll and stuff like that work. Some basic key bindings, the basic commands to move windows around and change focus and stuff like that. But then stuff like the dark mode toggle and the change your wallpaper and the smart clipboard and the lock screen and all that are tied to Noctalia shell, which is what actually provides the styling for like this bar up at the top of my screen, which is a way bar.
And that's a different configuration file.
That's in a different configuration. Well, some of it's in the Niri configuration file. You don't really have to get into the Noctalia configuration file because it has a settings pane, right? So you can go in here and you can change things like the the container radius, and how big the scaling on the bar and within the bar is. You can configure the widgets for your. You configure the bar. For the widgets on the bar, so that like this is what defines what goes where on my bar. So like this is the thing that says this opens the control center, right?
That's cool.
Now I lost my bar configuration there, which was a goofy choice. But like all of the different options here, like all the way down to like Bluetooth toggles and Wi-Fi toggles and audio volume settings and where system tray stuff goes is configurable here. So if I want to move my system tray stuff into the middle, I can do that. I think that's a dopey choice.
And it shows it in real time too.
Yeah, it all happens in real time. Now I have to remember where I had that originally because it's gonna make me crazy. I think it was here probably.
Whoops. Yeah,
that looks right. That's close enough.
Reset button. Hit the reset.
Yeah.
Control Z.
So yeah, like you can control all of the Noctalia specific stuff inside here, and then there's a handful of things you maybe have to get into the text file, but with the Noctalia 4 branch, they've done a pretty good job of getting in there. You can control things like, hey, what's your terminal command? What's all your different stuff? There's widgets on the desktop, right? So I have a clock. You can't see it because it's on the wrong monitor, but I have a clock. Desktop widgets. Here we go. Like I have a weather app, clock, and a media player widget that all live on my desktop, which you're not able to see because
you have multiple monitors set up. We're only seeing one of them.
Yeah. So here we go. I'll bring the widget down so you can see it. But like hold on. How do I do this? Raise to top, raise to bottom. I don't know how to move that. There's a way you can move them from different screens is the TLDR. Okay. And you can get them. Yeah, you can put them wherever you want, just like old school Windows widgets from 100 years ago.
Do you feel like you get confused sometimes of like, oh, wait, which one controls what thing, or is it pretty straightforward right now?
Once I got it all set up to use the same key bindings and made it make sense for multiple monitors and multiple desktops, it's been fine. So getting to that point was a little challenging. When like I had a different set of key bindings on the laptop than on the desktop, that was real bad, it turns out. And then like, you have like stuff like wallpaper selectors and all that. So I can do my, here's my space nonsense, and you can set it up per monitor or per desktop even, I believe. So, nice. And then the last part is the launcher. I mean, there's other stuff obviously, but this is the launcher. This is where you launch applications. And if I want to launch like Firefox, I can, well, Firefox is a bad example because it's bound to super plus B out of the gate. But like if I want to launch, I don't know, my file browser, which is just Nautilus from GNOME, I can do that here. You can see what I have bound and shortcuts and all that stuff.
Do you have to use Nautilus with Niri? Or
no,
do you
I have
feel like
Thunar on here too, I think. It's a little janky because some of the dependencies aren't right. But it generally does better with SMB chairs, which I have a lot of on the network. So like, I think
sorry, I meant Noctalia.
No, there's other shells as well. You can run blank if you want. You can also run there's a thing called dank matter shell, I think is what it's short for. So there's multiple different shells that will run inside Niri or Hyperland or Sway or one of the tiling window managers. And the kind of TLDR is that Niri handles the tiling and like the placement. And then Noctalia provides the window chrome and the stuff that you want to see to know how to use your computer. So like you'll like this thing. This is like CPU utilization, memory, and network that I can just click on, and you can configure that. Like you can dig in real deep here and get to like where here we go. Here's system bar. Like everything's available. Which disk paths you track the space on. Do you want to see the CPU frequency? Yeah, I'm running at 5.2 gigahertz right now. I got
Dang, you're running. Because I mean, I guess it's been a while since I've seen your whole setup, and it reminds me that, like, I wonder if I could do Noctalia on mine.
Absolutely.
Maybe that might help me.
Noctalia, I think, requires a tiling window manager. I think it only works on Sway, Hyperland, and Niri.
So Noctalia needs a tiling window manager.
It needs a tiling window manager because it doesn't provide that stuff. There's some other stuff that we haven't talked about. Like I use SDDM for the login. There's not an easy way to show that really. That's not going to make things janky on the recording probably. Yeah. Which we don't want to do. You can turn on a dock if you like a dock. I know you as a Mac user, you love like a dock. Yeah, so I can put that on the right side. I can put on the bottom. I can put it on the top if you want to get crazy. Like, you can make it floating. You can make it attached. I don't know where it went. It just disappeared.
Yeah, no, I'm like, I don't know where that happened.
Floating's nice. You can have an indicator for when it's hidden. You can make it opaque. Like, you could do all sorts of UI crimes here. Like, I can make on my bar, I can make the background opacity on the bar 0, and I make the widgets not 0, and like, you can do all sorts of like user interface crimes, basically. So you can make it as good or as bad as you want it to look. And then there's a lot more. Like there's a lot more stuff to it. Like I don't have Wi-Fi on this, but I have an interface for controlling Bluetooth, so I don't have to do it with the command line. I can set when it goes to sleep and when it suspends and all that stuff. The things that like KDE or GNOME handle for you on a more traditional desktop environment.
Yeah. So what and then what is cache's like configuration section look like?
There is no cache. Cache configuration happens all in systemd with text. So it's just like from a. I mean, well, that's not true. We do have cache hello, which is their little pop-up utility. This is like the thing you see when you first install the OS, and it lets you install you can install all the Proton and game packages and all that stuff. you can install Winboat. This is like, hey, this stuff you might want to do, but we're not putting it as part of the installer. And if you need to, actually, I think it's gone now, but there used to be a thing here that let you revert to your installed state, basically. Yeah, it's
a rollback.
Yeah, but it's also links to like, here's where to get help. Here's where you can find out more about the software. Here's the README and all that stuff.
Well, I guess that makes sense, yeah, because the actual distro doesn't have the configuration, like whatever your desktop environment is the one that has the configuration.
Yeah, so unlike like Fedora or Ubuntu, it doesn't have Cache doesn't have a like a preferred window manager and desktop environment, right? So Cache says, hey, do you want to which desktop environment do you want? Which window manager do you want? So you choose KDE or GNOME or Niri or Hyperland or Sway or XFCE. They kind of support everything to varying levels. And then if you're outside of the KDE and GNOME spaces, they kind of expect you to do the configuration yourself, which
Nice.
like, I know this looks crazy complicated, but this is the result of 8 or 9 months worth of like
Noodling
small 5 minute, here and 5 minute there changes.
And so how does this appear differently compared to when you're on the laptop?
It's the same. Everything's the same.
Oh, okay. Except for obviously no dual monitors.
Yeah. So like my chat thing lives in a separate desktop instead of on a separate monitor, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it. Nice. That's Niri. Please yell at me about my configuration. I'm sure that like this is one of those things that I always wondered about. I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but I always wondered watching people who use Linux and being like, how do you end up with like a bunch of anime girls in your background and like 50 million widgets and weird, crazy configurations? And the answer is, you make one change at a time, and then pretty soon you have something that is completely, it's like Wendell said, like a normal person sits down in front of this computer, they have no idea how to do anything. Because like the only way to open the launcher, I think, is to hit Windows and the space bar, and that pops it, the super key in the space bar, and that's what pops it up. There's no start button. There's no like easy, friendly way that's visible on this computer to open a program or open a browser or anything, aside from the stuff that launches automatically when you start the computer.
And that's funny. Yeah, it's like it's so different than what I have learned, because like at past jobs with either post-production audio houses or video production, like it's always like, hey, listen, these are workstations that anyone should be able to sit down to at any time.
Yeah.
And so like things are usually kept pretty vanilla. Like, and not that anybody else uses my laptop, but like, yeah, it scares me to think that, if somebody needed to go on my laptop, I wouldn't want them to not know what's happening. So yeah, it's funny.
And there's different use cases here too, right? Like if I had a computer that was a shared family computer, I absolutely wouldn't put this on it, right?
Oh, of course.
I would put KDE or GNOME or Windows on it, because everybody in the house has to be able to use this. But this is my computer. I'm the only one who uses it. It's essentially a single person computer, and this is fine. I think, full disclosure, I do also have GNOME and KDE installed, so I can log out, go to SDDM and switch sessions and switch to the different environments, and they work okay, but not great is my experience with that.
Okay, well,
yeah.
You excited to see my bog standard vanilla?
Let's see some vanilla GNOME.
Setup. Yeah, so I'm going to switch over, and hopefully it's not frozen. Yeah, here we go. So, okay, this is my desktop, and essentially, I just wanted to start with my splash screen of fast fetch here in the terminal window. So, running a laptop, I do have a discrete GPU, but I'm actually I had to set up a dock, a Thunderbolt dock, to output the HDMI, because that discrete GPU is turned off except for the VM that uses it. So, yeah.
So you could launch the Windows VM and then output that out the HDMI, and yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wouldn't get anything anyway. So yeah, I have multiple workspaces, so I'm just going to swipe up here, and usually I have 3 workspaces. The first one is like usually browser, and then files and like system monitor and stuff like that. The second one is usually like work chat with Slack, and then Discord. So like what you would probably call your chat area.
Can we talk about the day mode on YouTube? Because I don't know about that, man.
Yeah, I like YouTube in day mode. Sorry.
Wow. I'm shook. I expected to learn some stuff here, but that's a lot.
So yeah, I've got my chat apps open here, and then my third space is the VM. So essentially, I have it set up that I hit start on the VM itself. I give it a second, and then I'll open up Moonlight.
So you're just moonlighting into the VM now.
I'm just moonlighting into the VM. That's how I set it up. It takes a second for it to get started, but you can already see, at least on my system monitor over here, that look at the RAM all of a sudden just completely increased. It's like because I set some aside.
What a weird coincidence.
Yeah. So essentially, these are my 3 workspaces that I have set up, and I mean I am using GNOME. Like I have the pretty stock launcher here. Oh, here we go. Now we can get into my
and you're
my
on
desktop.
Fedora for this, is that right?
Yeah, I'm a Fedora 44, so I'm all up to date. I made sure yesterday that I have the newest stuff. And yeah, so here I am in my Windows VM.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so essentially, as I'm using it,
looks like stock wallpaper. Even I don't even know who I'm talking to.
I mean,
anymore,
yeah,
man.
but Windows, all I do is this is just my like Photoshop and Premiere kind of thing. So when I'm moving side to side on Workspace, like it just kind of the Windows workspace just kind of blends in with it. I will say, like I had to for this output, I had to put it at 1080p, but I usually don't run at 1080p, so some of the scaling is off a little bit. But yeah, and then I have some GNOME extensions, like the little system monitor up here. I do like showing the dock. This is like the one holdover I got from Ubuntu, is like I do like having the dock always there, and I like having it on the left side. So
that's cool. You said this was bog standard. This is fine. You're already used to that side to side scrolling life. Do you have a keyboard shortcut for that, or do you have to click a mouse button there?
Well, no, because I'm on my laptop, I just 3 finger swipe the gestures. So, and then swipe up to do the expose kind of thing. Yeah, but I mean, it's like I keep it pretty simple.
Figuring out like what makes sense to my brain in terms of like translating finger swipes, because on the laptop I definitely do finger swipes to move between workspaces and desktops and to scroll the side to side, and that just doesn't work as well. I think on the mouse, I think I hold the super button and then scroll the mouse wheel. I can do that, but I just did that. It's the second time I've ever done it, I think. So yeah.
Okay, nice.
Anyway.
I mean, so I will say I mentioned it right at the beginning, but this is the very first time I've ever plugged in a Thunderbolt 5 dock into this laptop in Linux at all, and it just worked.
Yeah.
Like, so this is the new pluggable. I don't remember the model number off the top of my head, but it's like one of their newest Thunderbolt 5 docking solutions that they had sent over along with the eGPU, and I had never plugged it into Linux before, and it just
that's cool.
It just worked, so that's good. I mean, I guess I don't know how to check if there's maybe a port that doesn't work other than just like plugging stuff into it.
Just keep plugging.
Yeah. It was able to provide a display out, and I have a separate mouse that I plugged it into as well, and it is providing power over that, even though I do have the external power in as well.
Cool. That's awesome.
The only issue which we talked about, and I still haven't been able to figure out, is that if I unplug from wall power, that discrete GPU still goes away. Like it happened yesterday, yeah, and like so it just doesn't show up in both Linux or Windows. So I think this is like a hardware issue with the laptop. Yeah. But that one still boggles my mind.
Yeah, that's a weird choice. Whoever is that, an ASUS laptop?
Yep. The ProArt 16 or something like that. So my old ThinkPad at the office is pretty much set up the same way, except for I don't run a VM on that because it's only 4 cores.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. So like that's really the only difference between the setups that I have on those 2 laptops. like on my desktop, if I ever get to the point where I'm comfortable doing it on the desktop, it'll definitely be a little bit of a different situation. I have two 4K 27-inch monitors, and I probably would have things set up a little bit differently. But
cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm running with.
Yeah, those are our desktops. Hey, hello.
Hey,
it would have
guess
looked
what?
a lot
Yeah.
different if we did this 6 months ago.
Yeah, we finally got to it. But before we get to other questions, let's pause for an ad break, and we'll get right back to it. We're back with some questions that people have submitted. And the first one coming in from friend of the show, Ensol, says, so we know everything there is to know about the upcoming WillOS. Can't wait to see it pop up on DistroWatch. But the real question is, what would an Atom OS be if he gets far enough along in his journey? What would it entail, and why is it aimed specifically at the handheld market? Wow, I feel called out here.
You forking the site, bro?
Well, I mean, your OS is very appliance specific.
Also, not real. Not a real thing.
It is a real thing.
Not a real
and
thing.
you're gonna make it because you feel like you want it to just work for streaming use cases in a dual PC setup.
This is a hex you put upon my house, sir.
I'm trying to think of something like, I don't think I have an appliance use case. If I were to do something, I think it would be a mixed handheld and docked into a workstation kind of thing. Like it would be probably eGPU centric, so that it makes sure you can plug in an eGPU and have that work. Preferably maybe like plugged into an Intel GPU that has the slicing, so you could have a VM that just shares.
Oh, the SRIOV stuff?
Yeah. So I don't know, but other than that, it'll probably be pretty standard. You saw my stuff. I'm pretty vanilla bean.
Yeah, you're a vanilla guy.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Except for the handheld stuff stirs it up, and the eGPU stuff. Like I still haven't had a ton of time to test out the eGPU stuff, but I guess I'm still bracing for impact on that, and feel like my distro probably would make sure that eGPUs just work.
Yeah, I think the other thing is you'd have a way to run Premiere and Photoshop.
Oh God,
built in.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's not up to me. So that would be nice. So yeah, like it's built into the
VM
package
or whatever. Like the VM stuff would be, because you had to do a fair amount of work to get that to work, right? And yeah,
I did. Yeah. No, yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
So anyway, good question.
Yeah.
Let's move over to friend of the show, Mr. Whippet. What do you think of running Linux VMs in Windows? Would trying Linux on a VM be easier than full-on installing Linux as a dual boot? I feel like we've talked about this multiple times before, but like, while I like the idea in theory, like I think you're just, without running it on the metal, I feel like you kind of need to commit to it. Rather than just having it run in a window or just poking around at it. Like, it's not that hard to just install it and have a dual boot setup.
I think that the live CD or live install serves the same purpose, right? Like
True.
Yes, you could absolutely do that. If you just wanted to set up a more permanent way to test that out and see if like your workflows line up and all that, it's not a bad way to do that. I think that live installs, if you just want to see if the hardware works, the live installs are great for that. But if you do want to like dig into your workflows and actually experiment more with some different workflows and stuff like that, I actually don't know what the support for like hardware Excel through VMs and stuff like that is with Linux. I haven't experimented with that at all because I've never actually tried to run a Linux VM in Windows before, I don't think. So
I still like, I mean, I still think the other option too is like, hey, just buy a real old junk, ThinkPad like I have, and just be like, hey, you know what? This is just my futzing laptop. I mean, you have a futzing laptop.
I think
too,
having a futzing laptop is it turns out having a futzing laptop made a lot of this a lot easier because it meant that I had a very low risk place to try stuff, which I think is incredibly important when you're just starting out, especially if you do like if you're just doing web browsing, if most of your work on your computer lives inside a web browser, futzing laptop doesn't matter. If you do work with real applications and you want to try some different desktop environments and like you want to do some weird experiments and all that, I think having the futzing laptop is super important.
Right. And I feel like everyone's got something either sitting around, or you can go to a flea market and get something cheap and that is out of support. So.
Like like the thing I realized a few days ago is that my keyboard, and I have a bunch of mice around for reasons that we don't need to get into, but like I have a couple of mice hooked up to different computers, and then I have 3 different switches on my computer, one for wired, one for Bluetooth, and one for the 2.4 gigahertz wireless dongle. And so I just use that as like the jankiest KVM in the world to switch between the different computers that I use. The other thing, I got to shout out, Elena recommended this ages ago, but she turned me on to like those, they're basically like $30 refurb 1080p portable monitors you can buy on eBay. And like, honestly, the Prime Day thing is happening right now. I saw another one pop up the other day that's like a 15-inch 1080p display. And it's not something I'm used for day-to-day use, but if you want to have something to hook up to like home lab stuff or to like a learning Linux machine or something like that, it's great for that. And it was $30, which like can't go wrong.
Great. I love it. Let's get to another one from Moonman 2090. In what way has being a Linux user changed how you view the Windows/Mac OS?
Ooh. I think it made me much more aware of how aggressively you're being marketed to in both in all other operating systems, phones, desktops, handhelds, everything. It turns out it's really nice to have a place that I can sit down and do computer stuff, and somebody's not trying to sell me something constantly. Especially when it's stuff that I probably really super duper don't need, like OneDrive or Game Pass or whatever Apple services they're doing. That's the other one is that I can, like, it's really nice to have a computer that doesn't prevent me from making it work the way I want it to work versus the way somebody in Redmond or Cupertino or whatever want it to work.
Yeah, I think for me, it's I never realized how many safety nets were in place for things like Windows. Like, if you have a hard crash or if you want to mess something up, there's pop-ups and stuff like that. We've talked about this before, but like on Linux, like just like, oh, wow, depending on the distro, depending on the setup, you can just like, you're being looked at in right in the face of impending doom and just be like, oh, okay, well, it's figure it out kind of thing, which is it's not a bad thing or a good thing. I think it's just more like, oh wow, you have so much more control over everything, and it's just so apparent at the jump. But
I mean, and it is the Uncle Ben lesson, because great power does come with great responsibility in that. Like there is a lot less hand-holding. The recovery environment in Windows is a nice light blue friendly screen that's like, hey, your computer's messed up. Can we help you? And the recovery environment in Linux is, yo, this is the emergency boot command line. And when you type help, nothing happens because it doesn't have room in the program for that. So like, you are on your own a little bit more.
Yeah, actually, I was able to help troubleshoot somebody at our work, Luis. He had put Fedora on an old laptop around there and was trying to learn Linux himself. And at some point, well, he had dual booted, and at some point he just couldn't boot back into his Linux partition. And I was like, I know what's going on here. Windows had an update that overwrote the
For what it's worth, Windows 11 has been a lot better about that than Windows 10 was the last time I tried to install Linux on a desktop. So yeah, Windows 11 doesn't seem to overwrite as much. Or maybe it's that I followed the best practice and I made the Linux boot partition and the Windows boot partition 2 separate partitions that just refer to each other rather than... So Windows changes its boot partition, but it doesn't know about the Linux one, so everything's cool.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
We got one from friend of the show, Wax Replica, from a long time Linux user who dual boots to Windows basically just for Marathon. Marathon's anti-cheat solution seems to be excluding Linux specifically. While BattleEye supports both native Linux and Proton, Bungie has not opted in for BattleEye to allow for the game to run under Proton. I was wondering if Will's game industry experience can offer any illumination on the decision-making process that might be going on with a project like Marathon as to whether to allow Linux/Proton users in multiplayer games. Really good question.
Yeah, so Bungie hasn't talked about this. It was a problem with Destiny as well. It impacts Call of Duty. It impacts Fortnite. It impacts Battlefield. There's a handful of League of Legends, Valorant, stuff like that. Weirdly, Valve ships Counter-Strike on Linux, no problem. And so it's like, this is a tractable problem that you can solve. A lot of it is inertia. You know, it's hey, there's not enough Linux gamers for this to be worth the hassle of maintaining, which is like, I mean, that has been fair in the past. The number keeps creeping up, but we're still looking at like 5-ish% at max of Linux users playing these types of games. I think, and also in a world where the Steam Deck is the main Linux machine that's showing up on like Steam Hardware Survey, I'm realistically never ever going to take my Steam Deck and play Marathon with it because I don't want to get owned. So, I think that, you know, at the same time, shout outs to like Arrowhead and to Embark. When Helldivers came out and didn't have Linux support, didn't have Steam Deck support, people asked, and then they immediately responded. In like 5 days after the game was out, they released a Linux version of their anti-cheat for Helldivers. Same thing with Embark and the Finals and Arc Raiders. So like, it's possible, you can do it. Bungie has a long history of being like incredibly aggressive about anti-cheat and taking great internal pride in both that and like reliability and server launches and stuff like that. And it may be that they look at this as too risky a thing to include, because it does open you up to a whole other world of kind of cheating surface area. Now, you can also dedicate a GPU to Linux and a different GPU to the VM and run Marathon inside a VM inside Linux, and it works great by all reports. I haven't tried that, but that is actually a much easier way to cheat. Like, that gives you much bigger cheating surface than running externally. And then the other wild card on this is all the rise in the secure boot anti-cheat, which won't run inside a VM and, like, you know, is the next wave of Windows anti-cheat. So, like, they're just being like, Fortnite doesn't support Linux anti-cheat because Tim Epic is upset with Gabe Valve and doesn't want to have benefit Gabe Valve.
Except for, that's why I think one of the things that coming out of Computex that's going to help Linux in the long term is that I showed up to an NVIDIA demo showing off the RTX Spark, and they called out specifically, and I was able to play the game on a laptop, an ARM-based laptop running Fortnite, saying, hey, we worked with the developer to get around the whole kernel-level anti-cheat stuff, which obviously they're doing it for ARM, but us Linux people can benefit from that as well. So I think maybe there's inertia on the ARM side that will help the Linux side as well. No,
the reason they're putting Fortnite on ARM and the reason they don't care as much about anti-cheat on ARM is because the ARM kernel extensions are locked. Like, Windows locks down ARM kernel, so you can't add kernel. Like, there's no equivalent to CrowdStrike or like kernel level anti-cheat or kernel level antivirus on ARM, because they never opened the door to that in the first place. Windows doesn't boot if you try to hook that stuff in on the ARM side. So there's no way for you to install a kernel level cheat program. So they can say it's like just like a console in that regard. Now, this is the thing that the free software people are like, hey man, you don't really own that computer if you can't run kernel level anti-cheat on it, which is, yes, that's true, but also it's kind of bullshit, because the only reason people want to run kernel level cheats is because they want to cheat in video games and make the whole thing bad for everyone. So yeah, don't worry. Like, I don't think we're going to see any movement on Fortnite on Linux as long as the Steam Deck is the big Linux platform for video games.
All right. Yeah. Well,
sorry.
I'm gonna sit here with my hopium. Will.
Yeah. Get your hopium.
Yeah.
But look, what we need is for Tim Epic and Gabe Valve to make nice, and then Fortnite will be on the Steam Deck and everyone will be happy, and except for people who play Fortnite on the Steam Deck, because I think that's going to be a miserable experience.
Well, isn't Fortnite back on the iOS App Store?
It is, but that was a money problem, not a
we didn't think that was going to happen.
Problem.
So
yeah, but that happened because of the European government saying, "Hey, man, you have a monopoly here."
Yeah. Anyway, next question is from friend of the show, Callus. Asks, being in a place where you're both willing to start helping other people learn to use Linux, would you like to take up the challenge from Craft Computing and install Linux on a machine so your significant other and or children can use it. How well do you think your family would respond to you saying, hey, you know what? Why don't you try Linux? I got you.
I am never, ever in a million years going to say, hey, family, this is your life now. You're a Linux person. If my daughter or wife come to me and are like, hey, I'm curious about that. I'm sick of Windows' shit. Sorry, beep. And I want to try Linux out. I'm finally done. I don't need any more OneDrive. I'm good. Then yes, I will absolutely help anybody who wants help with that within reason. But I'm never gonna unilaterally. Just to be clear, I don't think Jeff did this either. But like I'm not gonna force my family to suffer through Linux for content when they're not excited about it.
Yeah, I don't think he forced them.
He did not. He absolutely did not. No.
But I don't think they were coming to him saying, "Hey, will you please install Linux for us?" Like,
I think he might have sold it a little
initiative.
bit. I feel like he sold it a little bit and got him hyped up for it. And then they were like, "Yeah, what's this GNOME business? I don't know what we're GNOMing. I don't even know what we're doing over here."
Doing. And yeah, for me, like I think I would be comfortable recommending it to somebody like my wife or even my grandma, knowing that for the most part they just use the browser, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, unless like, I think really my questioning would be like, hey, what applications do you want to run? And if at any moment they say Adobe, I'm like, okay, cool. No.
Well, I mean, they're not going to say Adobe, but like, do they use the webcam when they Zoom? Do they do Zoom? Do they do Google Meet calls to talk to the grandkids, or like how are they doing? Like, where does that stuff land? And those are the questions you have to ask.
Yeah, or like what kind of things are you plugging in? Like, do we have to worry about your hardware actually being recognized? And
you got
supported?
a Steam Deck, you got a Stream Deck pedal. Is that good? That's not going to work.
I mean, like I would say most normal people don't deal with that. Like we definitely have some weird use cases where it's like, oh well, I use this piece of hardware in this kind of scenario and that kind of scenario. But
so the thing I'll say is that generally, when you ask somebody, hey, what do you use your computer for? They're like, oh, I use Chrome. I go to the bank. I do Facebook. I do all these, like I watch the TikToks, whatever it is. And then when you actually dig down into it, they're like, oh yeah, and I also do this one thing that you absolutely can't do, or I have this weird USB scanner that I use to scan old family photos. And like, you have to really do some, you have to do some real questioning. Or, hey, I have a printer from 1993 that I still use. I just love the way the dot matrix sounds, right? So you got to really drill down to find out that, oh yeah, no, they have their security cam system they bought in 2005, and it uses some proprietary software that doesn't exist on any other platform but Windows. So.
True.
Anyway,
or they take it to work and have a network printer that they have to hook up to or something. So,
I got to use my VPN from Cisco in 2008, and I can't connect to my Outlook 2000 without that. Oh God,
oh, goodness,
flashbacks.
Well. Yeah, let's pause real quick for another ad break before we continue with more questions. So we're back with some more questions. The next one is from friend of the show, Dirt410. So close. While this may or may not be the year of Linux, I think last year was the year of Linux.
2025.
Is this the era of Linux? What is the definition of an era?
1,000 years. That's an eon.
Okay, well that's a little too broad to say this is the era of Linux.
We're definitely in the eon of Linux. I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I mean, like I think like decade of Linux, right? Like,
I feel like we've been in the era of Linux for a long. Like, if you look at like the number of computers worldwide that run Linux, we've been in the era of Linux for a long time.
Well, but I mean, I think we're really talking about desktop Linux here, so. Like, I wouldn't call this the era of desktop Linux. Like, I think that's a little too wide.
So,
like, I still
according to Merriam-Webster, an era is a fixed point in time from which a series of years is reckoned, or a memorable or important date or event, especially one that begins a new period in history of a person or thing.
Oh, okay.
So we are in the era of Linux.
Actually, yeah. Okay, so thank you for looking that up. So I would plant my flag in 2025 and say that started the era of Linux.
I would even go back a few years, and I'd say when the Steam Deck came out, that was for desktop unit Linux. I think that was if you define the era of the end of the dinosaurs when the asteroid hit. Like it's not the 3 years before when the dinosaurs were getting all hopped up on fermented honey in ponds.
No, because I think it's two things. Yes, that's when it became like viable for a lot of people, but I think it didn't really cross over until the asteroid of Windows 11 being real bad and Windows 10 ending. Right, like that's why I think 2025 is that culmination. Yes, SteamOS was in place and getting better, but Windows 11 hadn't really, made it completely dog crap for everybody. And the end of Windows 10 just all happening in 2025. Just like that's why I would call that the beginning of the era.
I can see that
personally.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, look. Ultimately, do labels matter? No, probably not. Really, the era of Linux started when the LAMP stack took over, and that became what every web server in the world was running, and Windows has been living on borrowed time ever since then.
There you go. Boom. Got him. Question from friend of the show, Forced Evolutionary Virus. Are you ready to add SteamMachine equals 0 to all of your Steam command lines?
I don't think it's going to happen as fast as Valve would have thought if you asked them this last August.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, but I know I've railed about this before, but I still, when I sit down to play a game, I am putting in Steam Deck equals 0 in the property, the command.
Do you? I don't
launcher. Yeah, because why not? Like, I feel like I'm just worried that what if?
Is that a standard, or are you just doing it as like a prophylactic? Like, does that actually do things in most games? I thought it only does stuff in a handful of games.
I mean, it's only a handful of games that I know of.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, how do I know?
Just in case.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know if you can search on SteamDB for things that are only affected by Steam Deck equals 1.
I've never seen that.
But it's not even just that. I mean, what was that game? Oh, it was Resident Evil
stuff. Yeah,
the Resident Evil was like had a flag for do you see wine detection enabled kind of thing. So part of me is like, well, crap, should I always just like turn that flag off too as well? Like I hate that feeling.
One of the things I'm asking Valve is if they're going to have a standard. Hey, this is a Steam Deck, this is a Steam machine, this is a just generic Linux machine running Proton flag, or this is a third-party official SteamOS box like the Legion Go, right?
Well, but isn't that still on the developer to be able to look at that?
It is, but also it's in Valve's best interest for there to be a standard way to make that definition happen. This is an eternal. Like in the old days when DirectX was new, there were these things called capabilities bits, cap bits, and they would say, "Oh, this card is able to do trilinear filtering at this many taps, and this card is able to do an isotropic filtering or whatever." Mm-hmm. And you would when the pipelines were relatively fixed function and they didn't change. They changed a lot from hardware to hardware. They were specific to hardware. You would have to query those caps bits to determine what features were available to be turned on or off in the game. And it was a nightmare to maintain. Like, we don't want to go back to that, but also there needs to be a more generalized interface for this is a Steam Deck 1, this is a Steam Machine 1, this is a Legion Go, this is a blah, 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 or else there's no reason to ever upgrade that hardware. Because when Steam Machine 2s and Steam Deck 2s and all that stuff comes at some indeterminate period of time in the future when the AI bubbles popped, then we're in a different boat basically. And like it's like part of this is a future problem for most people. For people who are playing games on desktop Linux, it's a kind of constant challenge. Honestly, what I wish is that Valve would do, we've talked about this before here, but I'm surprised that Valve doesn't have a Steam input style menu that lets you share your Steam compatibility and command line with other people so that you can look and be like, okay, this person has the same hardware I have. Let's run this one.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I'm less worried about SteamMachine flags as I am Steam Deck, because I think most of the Steam Deck flags are forcing it into really like sub low settings just to make sure that it runs. The SteamMachine, while it's not a high end machine, still is much more capable hardware that it probably is closer to what, you know, is already in desktops.
So I'll have more on this on not this week's Tech Pod, but next week's Tech Pod. I got a SteamMachine in yesterday. Valve was kind enough to send me one. And I already am having it's running Steam Deck settings on the SteamMachine, which
really?
Yeah, like is okay on some stuff and not so much on other stuff. So we'll see. It's one of my big questions. I have a list of questions I'm sending to Valve after I have a little more time with the machine. But I'm curious how they're going to handle that and what the actual solution is, and if this is a problem that goes away when the machines are actually available to the general populace.
Well, luckily, I don't think this is going to be much of a problem. Number one, because I don't think they're really going to sell that many. Number two, comes in from a friend of the show, ScribeFix. Is there any reason for somebody to wait for SteamOS to come to third-party hardware instead of just using Bazite or CachyOS? And I think that's the real thing here, is that the Steam Machine as a box is awesome, but everyone knows the pricing is, you know, and the pricing for everything else really sucks. So I'm hoping people don't wait for new hardware to start to learn Linux, and they don't have to wait for SteamOS either. Like, yes, SteamOS would be the nice, easy, unifying thing, but also Valve moves really slow. And Bazite and Cachy have been able to do amazing things in the interim to say you can set up a Steam Machine style box with those same, you know, niceties in play, and like it doesn't, like there's less of a worry than there ever has been.
I think that's correct. I mean, I think you get a level of polish with the Steam Machine that you aren't going to get on a DIY machine, right? So like things
hardware wise, of course.
HDMI CC and being able to power it on by pressing a button on your controller, or the noise and the thermal configuration and the throttling seems really finely tuned just from my first impressions, right? They've done a really nice job with that. I think I think. So like if you don't care about that stuff, you can make a really compelling machine that costs like $50 or $100 less than what your Steam machine will cost. That's comparable perf. I mean, but
that's also like that's also. I just don't want people to think right now, like more normal users, like a traditional console person, be like, oh, well, I was going to get a Steam machine because I was curious, but now the price is crappy, but it's also just as crappy to build a new one. Hey, you probably already have hardware, maybe a laptop sitting around that you can, that is, you know, maybe a couple generations old, that you can put Steam on right now, like, or SteamOS or Bazite or Cachy. Like, that's the thing I worry about, is that this whole pricing thing is going to stop people from adopting it, whether you're buying a Steam machine or building something new, when you can go out and get those same niceties on hardware you already have.
Well, and to your point, like, I don't think SteamOS is the one you're going to want to run when that time comes. Like, if somebody's selling a SteamOS box, they're going to want to make margin on it. Valve's margin is always going to be less on hardware than anybody else that's working in the space. It's been a problem for the handheld market since it existed. I think, and if I'm doing a DIY machine, I want the things that Bazite and Cachy put in, Proton, and put in their systems that are off Steam. So I want things like Heroic Launcher and stuff like that. And I want the ability to get things like Glorious Eggroll for Proton that have, let's see, what's the right way to put it? IP that's encumbered by patents that Valve can't ship because they'll get sued. But Glorious Eggroll and Cachy and Bazite and those guys will totally ship, like your Bink video decoder and stuff like that. So the videos work in all of the games and not just the ones that don't use the encumbered patented video codecs. So yeah. Anyway,
so I mean, I'm excited to hear more of your thoughts on the SteamMachine. I'm actually bummed that nobody out there has really been using this for the other use case that they were trying to pimp. It was like,
desktop
oh, hey,
stuff.
you could work this as like just trying it as a desktop. Like, I mean, I get everyone wants to look at it from the gaming thing because that's what it's meant to be. But like, I also just want to hear how capable it is as a desktop system. So I don't know if you'll have time for that or not. But I'll be subscribing over Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod to hear more.
So again, it's not going to be this week. It'll be next week. But Norm Chan from Tested has had more time with it than I have so far, and he's going to come on. We're going to talk about it.
Nice. Let's get to a couple more questions before we wrap it up here. One coming in from Raspberry Rat. Will, can you give a rundown on how you'd recommend somebody getting Niri up and running?
Yeah, so I think Cache is a good place to try different desktop environments because they do ship configurations for a bunch of them, so you don't have to like install the KDE version or the GNOME version of Fedora to switch back and forth. I probably wouldn't do that on a long-term machine, but if you're doing this on a futzing laptop or a futzing machine, it's totally fine for that. And I would set it up. I would look at what Noctalia and look at what Dank look like and choose between them. I find the Noctalia one to be like, I'm old. It's a little more peaceful for me. I want serenity in my UI, not chaos. And I think Cache is shipping Noctalia by default now. So that's what when you select the Niri option, it just pre-installs Noctalia for you. When I did it, you had to download that manually. There's a new major version of Noctalia coming in the indeterminate future that is like the next generation where they're taking some more stuff internal and they're not using SDDM for the launch manager, stuff like that. But it's like, just jump in, boot into a DE, boot into a live environment, set it up on your futzing machine, try it out, see what you think. The thing I will say is you're going to spend some time in that config.kdl file, and the syntax looks initially kind of scary, but it's not. It's actually really easy to use. It doesn't do any of like the YAML weird spaces matter formatting or anything like that. You can just put it in there, learn how to do comments, leave notes for yourself, and try it out. See what feels good.
Well, and luckily, the Niri / Noctalia podcast from Will Smith is coming any moment now,
yeah,
right?
You can go to takecontrol.content.town and sign up. You can subscribe to an RSS feed. It'll be on iTunes in a couple of days. I'm about to post the episode 0 shortly.
That's Take Control.
Take control. Take control of your tech.
I like it. Final question before we get out of here is one from one friend of the show, Deidus, who's the CEO of Deezer, supposedly. Will you fight the final boss?
I don't want to fight. I like Wendell.
I don't. Well,
is Wendell the final boss still? Do we change this?
No, he's always been the final boss.
Okay.
What are you talking about? Yeah,
I was just making sure. I don't want to fight Wendell. I like Wendell.
I do like Wendell, but he might show up in before we end this whole thing. So
we'll see.
You'll have to stay subscribed and check it out. And we've got a couple more episodes. Help us join the growing movement of Linux love, and be around to celebrate. But don't worry, there's going to be more Linux coverage still on PCWorld. Will, you got takecontrol.content.town, all that fine stuff. So the Linux love is not going to end, but we are going to end today's episode. Thanks, Will, for going over some questions. Thanks everybody for submitting, and thanks for showing off your Niri craziness. Desktop.
If you all have questions about that stuff, hit me in the Linux channel in the Full Nerd Discord, and I'll pop in when the episode's up. I think I'm booked, unfortunately, when the live show is going to be this week, but
it's fine. Anyway. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks everybody, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Always be in the terminal.